run another one.
And then it'll tell me to go, and we'll start recording. I forgot to have my book here. Isn't that awful? Wait. Welcome to Insightful Player TV. My name is Chrissy Carew, and I'm a personal business coach and the founder of Insightful Player. Now, we created Insightful Player to inspire the youth to follow their dreams, and we're doing that by showcasing these fabulous role models that are in the NFL or have played in the NFL. And these guys are amazing role models. They'll overcome great odds to get what they wanted to do in the NFL to reach their dreams. And today we have a very special guest on our show. His name is Karl Mecklenberg. He is very famous in Denver. He played for the Denver Broncos for a boatload of years, and he's a legend, an absolute legend. He's a published author. He's a professional speaker. He's written 2 books, Mech for Defense, and the book I have right here is The Heart of a Student Athlete, which is a fabulous read, and we're going to get into that today. And in The Heart of the Athlete, it's the importance of taking small steps when you dream big dreams, regardless of your situation. Now listen to this. He's a published author who has dyslexia and a professional speaker who was in speech therapy for 3 years. Hello? And because he had a lisp. And he's a slow, stiff kid who became a pro, an absolute legend in the NFL. Now, if this guy came over a lot of obstacles, and he's a very, very inspiring person and a sensational role model. So you're going to have a great time spending time with Karl tonight, and I just want to welcome you, Karl. I'm so happy that you're back.
Hi, Chrissy. Thanks.
Well, it's such a treat. You know, you're doing such beautiful work in the world, and let's just showcase your book again. The Heart of a Student Athlete is a fabulous read. Now, where can people get this?
You know, you just go to Amazon. That's the best place to get it. It's Heart of a Student Athlete, all-pro advice for competitors and their families. I ran into many young people, parents, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, who asked me, you know, how can my athlete, how can my child get to the next level? And I kept running into that over and over, and there was a lot of misinformation out there. You know, you go on the internet and you look around and you see all kinds of crazy stuff that people think is ultimately very, very important, and it really comes down to basics, universal keys to success. You talked a little bit about my life earlier, and overcoming obstacles. To me, overcoming obstacles is what success is all about. That's what it is. As you pursue your passion in your life, I talk about teamwork, courage, dedication, desire, honesty and forgiveness, and goal setting as the 6 keys to success that your student athlete should use, and really everybody should use in their lives.
And someone with dyslexia, tell us the process of writing this. You know, you wrote 2 books. How on earth did you do that with dyslexia?
Well, the first one was pretty easy. The first one I used a recorder, and I recorded my thoughts driving to and from work, and somebody transcribed it and made it into a book.
Excellent.
And it was basically a diary of a championship season. It was '87. We went to the Super Bowl that year. Then this one, really, like I said, was my response to all the questions that I gotten through the years. And really, I believe that the young people out there need to take control of their own futures. And if you have that extravagant desire, if you're pursuing something that's bigger than yourself, you're going to have a chance to make positive decisions. And even if you don't reach it completely, you're going to get a lot farther in life than you would if you don't pursue those desires. For me, I wanted to be the greatest football player that ever played the game. Like you said, I was a slow, stiff kid from the suburbs, and that was pretty silly for me to even think that way. But because of that, I made a lot of positive decisions. I ran into obstacles, and I was able to overcome those obstacles because I was looking past that day into the future. And when you run into obstacles, all three of my kids have gone through karate, and there's this time in karate where the teacher holds a board in front of you. It's like an inch thick pine board, and tells you got to break this. Now you've knocked on doors, you've walked on wood floors your whole life. You know that thing's hard, and it's going to hurt. And if you think about the obstacle, it's going to hurt you. But what they teach you in karate is to strike through the obstacle, past the obstacle. The target is beyond the obstacle. And it's the same thing with desires, with passions, with missions. If you have an extravagant desire, you're going to run into obstacles, but you're not thinking about that. You're going to pass right through, and it's not going to hurt. In the same way that the karate student can break that board. My 10-year-old daughter broke the board, and she was not a strong kid, but she could do it because she was thinking past the board.
That's amazing. That's really an amazing story. So how did you do that as a young, slow, your own words, slow, stiff kid? Where did you begin with that as a kid? Because that's a great thing to hear about.
Yeah, well, it's an everyday thing. You don't allow yourself to get down. You think about, and you're honest with yourself about what you need to work on, and then you work on those things. And it's a gradual process. Nobody's going to start off as Peyton Manning. You're going to start off as whoever you are in the position you're at. But if you aspire to be Peyton Manning, then you're going to take steps and more steps and more steps, and every day get a little bit closer. And that's the way it works. It's very, very unusual in the NFL to run into anybody who didn't have to work at it. I don't know that I ever have. Even John Elway, when he was a rookie with the Broncos, he had to learn how to work. He was such a gifted athlete, he never had to work until he got to the NFL, and then he figured it out and started making some advances. But it was one of those things that regardless of the innate talent, you've got to bring it out. You've got to develop, and the only way to do that is set those goals and say, you know what, I did this wrong this week in the game. How can I fix that? Well, you set a couple of goals and work on those things that week during practice, and then you play the game, and hopefully those things are fixed. But something else is going to be wrong. I mean, we go into film every week, watch the film, and expect there to be something wrong. Regardless if you're an all-pro player, if you're a rookie, you come in and you evaluate, you find out what's wrong, and then you set some goals for that next week of practice, fix those things. Going into the next week, something else is going to be wrong, win or lose, great game or poor game. And to me, that is how you take those steps and get closer and closer. The goals are the little steps. But that desire, that passion, that mission, that's the target. And you're aiming towards that, and every step you take is another step to get closer to where you want to go.
Wow. So talk about that mission, because that can really make a difference to help you, take that full assessment of yourself of how you're doing. Like you just mentioned, back when you were playing for the Broncos. And, talk to us about that purpose and mission, because you're so passionate about that.
Yeah, the mission, to me, has to be something that's extravagant. It's long-term, and it's somewhat general. Like I said, for me, it was I want to be the greatest football player that ever played the game. That's what I thought about. That's how I made my decisions. I didn't go into practice, just trying to get by, trying to make the team, trying to be first string. I wanted to be the best. So to me, I was able to make decisions that would help me in the long run rather than the short term. And I kept taking those steps. Didn't take the shortcuts, and there's always temptations to take shortcuts. I know kids are out there, and they've heard about performance enhancing drugs, that type of thing. You know what? In the long run, it's going to hurt you. It's going to kill you. But in the short run, you're going to get some benefit from it, but in the long run, it's going to hurt you. And if you think in the long terms, you're going to be able to say no to that, get in the weight room, do what you have to do, and get strong. I was one of the strongest guys on our team. I could clean and jerk 450 pounds and never used any sort of drugs in my life. And it was a decision I made that allowed me to have a long and successful career instead of all the injuries you would have if you got involved in those performance enhancing drugs. So all those decisions are made because you have that desire, that passion, that mission, and you take those steps closer and closer to where you want to get. I'm over 50 now. I can't play football anymore, obviously, but I do have other passions in my life. As a Christian, I want everything I say and do to reflect God's love. As a speaker and an author, I want to inspire long-term positive change in teams and individuals. As a husband, I want to give uncompromising, unconditional love to my family. That's who I am. I define myself that way, and it wasn't always that way. See, I was in some deep trouble with my family a few years back, and I decided, you know what? I got to make this a priority, and I set this desire, this passion, this mission in my life, and I was able to get closer and closer to where I want to go now, and things are much better than they were at that time. So you can decide, you can determine your future by setting these desires. It's a great thing to do it. Sit down and think about it. What's important to you? Where do you want to go? And then instead of chance directing your life, your desires do. I would suggest setting these desires at 10 words or less and writing them down. This is something that you're going to pursue for a long time. So that's something that you should make every decision based on. I get up every morning and I think about those 3 desires. I think about my family. I think about my Christianity, and I think about my business. And that's something that I do daily, and it allows me to focus on those things and get closer to where I want to go.
Wow, that's very inspiring. You're so focused. You're definitely on that path of mastery as a human being. I mean, absolutely. That's what mastery is all about. That reaching and living your priorities. That's what you're doing. And the fact that you got into a trouble, that could have been one of your greatest gifts, and now you're even more committed to, your biggest top 3 priorities of, your family, your God, and your passion. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
I appreciate that, Chrissy.
I salute you. And you have, and the whole thing about make it extravagant, and that's, as a coach too, I noticed that my clients that really go far in life are the ones that make their goals much bigger than them. They use that same extravagance. They hold that bar up high for themselves. And the ones that don't make it are the ones that just trying to get by. So people think that extravagance makes it harder, but my experience, my own life, as well as talking to people like you and all my clients, it's like, it just makes the path so much clearer, don't you think?
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. We go to training camp every year with 110 guys. 110 guys would go to training camp, and at the end of 5 weeks, there'd be 50 left. Every single one of those guys had the talent, had the skill. They've got scouts in the NFL that go all across the country, check you out, see how fast you run, how high you jump, how much weight you lift. They watch your game film, and if they're interested in you, they come out personally, interview people. They interviewed my coaches. I was a 310th pick in the NFL draft. That's 20 guys away from Mr. Irrelevant, the last guy picked, and still they came out. 2 different scouts from the Broncos came out and interviewed coaches. One of them even interviewed my girlfriend. That's how hard they look at you. Yeah, they know without a doubt that you can make this team and you can play for this team and there's a spot for you. But the question is, do you? I mean, too many guys would come into training camp with great athletic ability, great potential, but their desire was, I want to go to an NFL training camp. It wasn't, I want to be the best player that ever played the game, and that's what held them back. It wasn't their ability. It wasn't anything else. It was that level of desire.
Right.
Yeah, that extravagance makes a huge difference, and it's very obvious as you get closer and closer and closer to the top of your field.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, and I think we need to remind our viewers about that. If what they want doesn't make them, a little anxious, then they're not wanting enough for themselves. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, Chrissy. It's much more prevalent for people to be held back by themselves than by anything else.
Right.
That fear of failure, that fear of, what if I set my desires too high, then I'll never be able to achieve that. You know what? That's not true, because as you're moving along, you're going to accomplish great things. As you get closer and closer to that desire, there's thousands and thousands of young men in the NFL who want to, or in the United States who want to play in the NFL. But the ones that make it are the ones who have made that a priority. It's not a wish, it's a passion. This is where I'm going, and this is so how if it's just something that would be nice to you, how do you think you're going to compete with someone who have planned their life around that? It was very difficult. So, and it's the same thing in every single field. There are a lot of people who would love to play in the NFL, don't make it, but have learned so much by that process of getting closer and closer and closer, making positive decisions, having things happen in their favor. They learn about teamwork. They learn about leadership. They learn about themselves and what commitment can accomplish and what it can't accomplish. It's a great, great exercise to set these desires, these extravagant passions.
Absolutely, and it's all about what's in your heart, just like the name of your book, right? It's like definitely putting your heart right at the center of the whole kit and caboodle, if you will, right?
There you go, Chris.
Yeah, and it's really amazing. So there are a lot of people that are do fear falling down or not making it, or they let fear stop them in the path, of what they have these yearnings to do something like play in the NFL or play any sport, or it doesn't matter what their dream is, but they let fear stop them. And one of the things that I've noticed from greats like you is that if you don't have any fear, then again, then you're not on the right track. If you have fear about something you crave, which is similar to what we just talked about, keep going, because anytime we stretch, there is fear.
Sure.
And if there wasn't any fear, we'd have to genuflect to each other all the time, like the Catholics.
You got to have courage. You got to have the courage to try new things. You got to have the courage to step outside of your comfort zone. That's a huge part of success. One of the reasons I'm a motivational speaker, the thing I miss most from football is that adrenaline, that excitement, that challenge before a game. And I get that when I get in front of a large group. I still get that adrenaline, and I'm addicted to it. I love it. I know some people it bothers, but for me, it's a wonderful thing. And so the great thing about speaking, though, is no one's trying to hurt me, so it works out pretty well.
And that's like fulfillment for you, and that's another sign that people should pay attention to. They're on the right path if they get adrenaline from something like you do with speaking, as you did with football, as you did back when you were that slow, stiff kid setting those goals. I'm going to be the best football player that ever played. That's incredible. And so, gosh, I mean, there's so much that you could talk about just this one subject. Because, you have courage, and as a coach, one of the things that I've noticed is that it's not that people don't have courage, is that they don't recognize they have courage, and they think they're without it. And if they can only honor their own courage within, they'd move forward without judging themselves and have less fear. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. The courage to try new things is huge. But a big part of that is the courage to be decisive. I saw great players out there all the time, great athletes, who would look, and I knew they knew exactly what the play was, but they wouldn't allow themselves to react. They'd have to look again, and then it's too late. And that courage to take that first step, before you even know why you're taking that step, that you've trained yourself, you allow yourself to let yourself go. If you think about the best games that you've ever played in your life, and you think about, what was I thinking? A lot of times you weren't thinking. You were allowing yourself to react. You've trained yourself. You go through practice. You watch film. You do everything you can to prepare for the game, but then you got to allow yourself to go. And that decisiveness is huge. I speak to corporate groups all the time, and it's amazing how many times I've seen or had a leader from an organization come up and say, what, Karl, see this big company I built here, this wasn't even the idea. I was working on something completely different, and I ran into a problem, and I saw it as an opportunity. I was decisive, took the first step, and was able to build this whole company around that one problem that I saw as an opportunity because I was the first one to react in the way I did. It's the same thing in football. If you have that decisiveness, the way I like to put it is if you take the first step in the right direction before anybody else does, all the angles change in your favor. That's how it works on the football field. That's how a guy who runs a 4.9 40 could be a 6-time All-Pro. It was not because of anything, spectacular about my athletic ability. It was because I took that first step in the right direction repeatedly. Every single play, I allowed myself to do that in practice too. And you know what? If I made a mistake, I made a mistake. Too often people think, well, I'm not sure, and then it's too late. You've got to take that step when it's time to take that step.
And I love that section on the book on decisiveness. And I mean, it's so true. And you are so, it gives you an amazing ability to be so present, and to make those right decisions, like connecting with your intuition. You talk about that as well. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, Chrissy, there's signs, there's clues out there all the time. I guess one of the stories that I like to tell about that is at the end of the year, every year as a football player, you're really stiff and sore and you don't realize it. You're kind of numb. And then there's a day in the off season where you wake up and you stretch and you're like, oh man, I feel good today. And all of a sudden you realize this is the way most people feel all the time, but you've been numb to that. You've been numb to that, and you don't even think about it. So I think there's a lot of things in our lives we're numb to. We're getting input, and we actually would know how to interpret that input, but we just ignore it. There's, and our lives would be so much better if we paid attention to those issues, those things, and solved them. So that decisiveness, that ability to do that is huge in my mind. So you've got to be able to take that input and then apply it when it's time to apply it.
Right. And you talk about how it just really helps you, access that wisdom,
It
by
certainly
being
does.
decisive, because we all have it within us,
Certainly, yeah. I mean, if you take the time to practice, if you take the time to study your playbook, if you take the time to prepare for a meeting, prepare for whatever you're doing, then the only way you can access that is by allowing it to happen. You're prepared. The hay's in the barn. That's what my dad used to say. And just go out there and do what you do best. So to me, that lack of decisiveness really puts all that preparation. It doesn't matter how much you prepare if you don't allow yourself to play when it's time to play.
Right. And, I like to look at that as like connecting versus performing, because you're connecting with the present, you're connecting with yourself, you're connecting with the wisdom. And then when we're performing, it's more about trying to prove. And that's when we can overthink things,
Right.
And become hesitant, and not decisive. So, that being present and the decisiveness, I think, is magical. And that's a really good section. I love your book, and that was one of my favorite sections, because I think that's a prevailing problem out there in the world. People.
I agree, Chrissy. Hey, speaking of being present, I'm going to disappear if I don't plug my computer in. The battery's running low. Just a second.
All right, so let me just hold up your book, and while you're gone, no big deal. It's The Heart of a Student Athlete. This is a must-read. I think I read this like a night and a half. All-pro advice for competitors and their families. That's what I love about it. It's for the competitors and their families, so the families can really understand how to support everyone. So can you say a little
Chrissy,
bit more?
I got it plugged in. The thing that I really stress in the book for the families is that it's about opportunity and it's about support. That's how my parents approached it. I was involved in everything. I was in Boy Scouts. I was in the band. I was playing hockey, baseball, football. I wrestled at one point. I did all kinds of stuff until I found that passion. And then they supported me in the passion. And my dad's a physician. He's an obstetrician gynecologist. I think we were the only high school football team in the country to have an OBGYN as the team doctor, but he was there supporting us. So yeah, that support was huge. But it wasn't his passion, it was my passion, and that was the great thing. He allowed me to find my passion, and then didn't interfere. A lot of the times when a young athlete will make that quantum leap and really understand and own that passion themselves is when they run into problems. Success is overcoming obstacles on the way to your dreams. That's the way I approached it. And if you run into those obstacles and then your parents solve them for you, then you don't own it. I ran into a situation that I talk about in the book of where I got assigned a whole bunch of hills. The coach was basically trying to get me to quit, and I ran every single one of those, every step on that hill. So, he can't make me quit. He can't wait. And that's where I made a huge jump. You know what? I didn't realize football was that important to me until that moment. And I'm glad my parents didn't step in and take that moment away from me.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story. And you were a lot of hills, weren't you? Just like
it was crazy. It was 100 hills after practice. I had to run 10 after each practice, and it was crazy. 50-yard long, 45-degree angle hill. It was a tough thing. And I was back there a couple of weeks ago actually, and was looking up that hill saying, I can't believe I did that, because I couldn't do it now. That's for sure.
And that's right. And speaking of being back there, you were just inducted into your high school Hall of Fame. Can you tell us about that?
I was. Hooray!
That's exciting.
That was
very
fun.
Exciting.
Yeah, it really
was. That like?
It was interesting. It was fun to go back. Things have changed, and it's been forever. It's been 30 years since I was there, more than that. But you know what? Things were the same. I mean, they had the band out there, they had the cheerleaders. It was really an exciting time for everybody. It was homecoming for my high school, and playing it at the same stadium. They got nice turf now. They didn't have when I was playing, but it was at the same stadium and everything. It was a neat thing to go back and reminisce. I brought my wife and my daughter back with me, and my son, and it was fun. It was really a nice time.
That must have been nice. That's great. Congratulations. I'm going to have to add that to our site somewhere, the Insightful Players site.
Thank you.
And back to the whole obstacles things, that's another thing. I've learned so much from you players. I've definitely learned a lot from you, Karl. And, you've really changed your relationship with obstacles and setbacks and in adversity. And I think that is so important. If you can share more about that, because a lot of people will have something hit them, any kind of setback or disappointment, and then just focus on why me versus, what can I gain from this? How can this make me better? Because you had a lot of obstacles, and, I'd love for you to tie some of the obstacles you had, like even with your learning disabilities, right? And how you move forward and, where you are today is really quite touching and inspiring.
Well, thanks, Chrissy. Yeah, the dyslexia thing was hard in school. There's no doubt about it. I had to learn to adjust and get around it. I still can't spell very well. Thank goodness for spell check and word processing and that whole thing. But I was able to overcome that. And like you say, I've got a couple of books out. I write articles all the time.
Amazing.
It's not something that can't be overcome. Many people have. But the fact of the matter is, it's also helpful in some ways. When your brain is wired a little differently than other people, you're going to think differently than them. You're going to come up with ideas that they don't come up with. You're gonna be able to do things on the athletic field that they can't do. I could play on the left side, the right side. I didn't know. I didn't care. I was out there playing either. And a lot of people are stuck on one side of the ball or on the other side of the ball. And I wasn't. That dyslexia thing is tied with mixed dominance. I can throw a ball with either hand. I can move equally to my left or to my right, and that's a gift. That's something. And in speaking. Yeah, and in speaking and in writing, all of a sudden I'm thinking a little bit differently. So I come at problems, I come at issues from a little bit different angle, and there's an advantage in that. So don't be discouraged by being a dyslexic or being somebody who thinks a little bit differently than other people. Maybe you're not in with the in crowd or whatever because of that, but you know what? In the long run, it's going to help you. If you persevere, if you overcome the obstacles that are set up around that learning disability, ultimately, in the long run, you're going to do much better.
That's great. You could probably relate to that movie Rudy. Wasn't that? Remember the Rudy movie?
Yeah.
Didn't he have dyslexia?
Yeah, he had some issues. He was too small and too slow, but he hung in there. He persevered, and he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. And to me, that's such a huge part of it. I think a lot of young people look at successful people and say, oh, everything must have gone right for them. You know, that they were lucky, that, you know, they were born into the right family, they had the right genes, they had the right opportunities that I'm not getting. Well, you know what? Very, very rarely is that true. More often than not, they've overcome again and again and again and again. If you look at the ranks of the NFL, the ranks of the NBA, the ranks of Major League Baseball, it's full of guys who come from very, very difficult backgrounds. Backgrounds that most people, you know, would really pray that they weren't involved with. But you know what? They learned how to overcome at an early age. They overcame and overcame and overcame, and something within their character allowed them to say, you know what? I'm getting out of here. I'm going to better things. I'm going to be great. And then they made those decisions day by day by day and allowed themselves to do that. So that ability to overcome, even at an early age, is very, very important if you're going to be successful as an older person.
Right. I mean, you almost have the ability to get your PhD in, you know, character building at a very young age if you come from tough circumstances. You know, it's like there's so many of the people that have really made it in life that have fallen the hardest, you know, along the way. And, you know, they have just reaped the wisdom from those experiences, and that really helped them, you know, become enormously successful like yourself, you know, which is, and there's no surprise that you have enormous success after football, you know, with your 2 books and your speaking as you did getting to the NFL. It totally makes sense. And so how can Insightful Player help you and get your message out? I mean, this book is really fabulous. Everyone should read it.
Yeah, Chrissy, my message is pretty simple. I believe that there are universal, unchanging keys to success. With so much change going on in this world right now, it's kind of nice to have those things, you know, that would allow your grandparents, that did allow your grandparents to be successful and will allow your grandchildren to be successful. This is something that's not going to change. You can hang your hat on and say, you know what? Teamwork, with leadership being the ultimate expression of teamwork, courage, the courage to try new things, and the courage to be decisive. Dedication, which is hard work, constant learning, and refusing to quit. Desire, that dream, that passion, that mission. Honesty and forgiveness with yourself and self-evaluation with others. And finally, goal setting, the day-by-day little steps to get closer and closer to where you want to go. These are the things that allowed every successful person to be successful. If you look at your own life and think about where you've been successful, you'll find these things. If you look at those you respect, if you look at their lives, you'll find these things. So just put those in effect in your life, and you're going to have a chance to get to where you want to go. And if you don't, you're going to have problems. So it's pretty simple stuff, but you know what? It's universal. It's there for each of us. We just got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I, you know, I also want to just touch on something that is such another powerful part of your book, is that honesty and forgiveness. You know, people are so tough on themselves and keep beating themselves up. Do you have a moment just to speak on that a little bit? Because I love that part of the book. That's awesome.
I do, Chrissy. Yeah, honesty and forgiveness is probably the largest stumbling block to this whole thing. If you have a desire, if there's a place you want to go, but you can't be honest with yourself about where you're at now, it's impossible to set goals in that direction. You know, if you say, well, I'm here, but you're really over here, and you're setting goals in that direction, you're getting further away from you know your target than you started. So it's ultimately very important for you to be able to say, you know what, it's okay. This is where I'm at today. This is where I want to go. I'm going to set goals in that direction. I'm going to get there, right? If you can't be honest with yourself, or you can't say, you know what, it's all right, I'm here. It's very, very difficult to get any closer to where you want to go. So to me, that's huge. In the NFL, it's easy because they film everything. And they evaluate everything, and you know exactly where you're at, and the coach pulls no punches and tells you where you're at. So that you get a thick skin that way, but you also learn to be honest with yourself and anticipate. You know, it's okay. I made a mistake. I'm going to set goals so I don't make that mistake again. And I'm going to get another step closer and closer and closer and go to where I want to go. So that honesty and forgiveness is a huge part. That's
great. That's great. Anything that we didn't touch on that you want to share today? Because you have so much expertise in this whole arena of reaching dreams, and you're evidence of that in your life.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I you know what? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There's so much more in the book.
Yeah, you got to get the book, everybody.
I've got multiple stories about. If you enjoyed my little stories that I told today, some of those are in the book, some are not. But the book's full of stories, and that's the way I approach it. It's not. It's an entertaining thing, and you'll have fun with it. Yeah. You can go to studentathlete.us. Studentathlete.us is the website for the book. The book's won 3 national awards now. It's the Mom's Choice Award winner. The gold winner for Mom's Choice Award is also the 2010 winner of the Mensa Sharp Writ Book Award for young adults, which means I beat out the vampires and the werewolves, so I'm pretty proud of that.
That's awesome! Congratulations!
And thank you. It's also a Living Now medal winner, so it's critically acclaimed in that way too. So it's a great read for anybody who's interested in bettering their lives.
Yeah, and again, I just want to pick up on something you said. The stories of Karl's life that relates to the key points cements the learning. And it's so interesting, how you're so vulnerable and share your stories, that it really brings everything to light. And and I'm not surprised that you're winning all these awards. And this is a great book for people to read with each other and discuss. Don't you think? Families to read, and
it really
friends,
is, yeah. Certainly. I've got a study guide on that website, studentathlete.us, that if you want to get together with your football team in the off season or your other team, you can pull up that study guide and answer the questions in there, talk to each other about those talking points, and you'll get a real, I guess, deeper understanding and feel for what I was getting at and where the book is meant to take you.
Oh, that's really generous that you did that. That's fabulous. I haven't seen your study guide. I'm gonna go look at that.
There you go. Sure. Studentathlete.us, Chrissy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to add that to the website as well.
Well, thank you.
For sure. Well, thank you so much. It was such a treat to have you back. Keep thinking of ways that Insightful Player can support you, because we really believe in what you're doing and your powerful messages and how much you care about your audience. And it's so genuine, and I really admire you for what you're doing. Thank you. You're making this world a better place, Karl.
Thanks, Chrissy, and I'm proud to be a part of your book too. The Insightful Player book just when to come out, and just now, right? In the past,
just this month.
Week.
Yeah.
So
you got yours, right?
I'm in there. Yeah, I got mine. I've been reading it. It's great stuff. There it is.
InsightfulPlayer.com. Yeah, go to Amazon.com. You can find it there too. But today's the focus is on Karl. You want to go to Amazon.com or Student Athlete. Give me that address again.
Studentathlete.us.
.us. Okay.
.us. Right. Okay. There's also on Amazon you can get that in e-reader form too. The books in the Kindle form, so you can order it that way too.
All right. Studentathlete.us. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing book. You're going to love it. Heart of a Student Athlete. All right. You go have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll be in touch. Thank you for coming on, and I want to thank everybody for sitting here with us and meeting our wonderful Karl Mecklenberg, who is a legend, both on and off the field, and we are honored to have him on the Insightful Player team. So God bless everyone, and God bless to you. Thank you, Karl.
All right, bless you. Take care.